Well, good evening and welcome to my channel, Fabulously Functional. This is Beverly, and I decided to just come on and share this little book that was gifted to me some time ago. Don't know if she'll be able to or end up watching this video that I'm making for my channel. Christian Parker, who's a very dear friend of mine, um, especially at my husband's church where he's pastor, Deaconess Christian Parker. She and her husband are a team for the Lord and are a great support to the ministry there at New Salem Missionary Baptist Church in Indianapolis, Indiana, where my husband is the founding pastor. But she gave me this book, and I know she gave it to me because of my business, Bev's Midday Cafe. And it's called A Taste of Chicken Soup for the Soul. It talks about food and love, which brings to mind one of the members of my husband's church and a very dear friend to me and an armor bearer to me, Sister Leslie Ford. She always talks about my food and orders a lot from Bev's Midday Cafe. And she says, Sister, what makes your food so good is that you cook it with love. And I said to myself, but this is true. I do keep in mind the people that I serve, the people that order from me on a frequent basis. I do have them in my heart and my mind when I'm cooking. And I say that because even now that I'm cooking vegan, and, in thinking about the people that I serve, just wanting to be healthier with the things that I was preparing for my husband, who was diagnosed with coronary artery disease, who we literally turned that thing around just by going vegan and by having a plant-based diet. He said to me, he says, Bev, I know you have this business, and he says, you don't have to change what you're doing for me. And I said, absolutely, I do. I said, there's probably several others that need to change the way they're eating. And I said, if you're going to change your diet, I'm going to change mine too. But absolutely love this book. Every now and then I'll crack it open and read it. But just the first story in here is talking about becoming a cook. And of course, I cooked a little bit. I did pretty good before I got married. But once I got married is when I really developed my cooking skills, had to develop my cooking skills. Wanted to prove to my new husband that I knew how to cook, because he could cook too. But, I told my mom, I called my mom, I said, Mel, I said, he wants to cook too in the kitchen. I said, but I want to be the cook in the house. And my mother said to me, she said, Beverly, you going to put Mel out the kitchen? And I said, I think so. And she said, well, know full well, honey, once you put him out, he's not coming back. She was right about that. And 30 years plus of marriage, after I put him out of the kitchen, he never came back. But I have to thank God for my husband, because when I took over the kitchen, he was very supportive of me and very encouraging to me, because whatever I made, he ate it. No matter if I bombed it or it didn't turn out perfect, he ate it. And he was thrilled that I prepared whatever I prepared. So I read this story here about becoming a cook. And I think I posted this saying from this book on my business Facebook page, Bev's Midday Cafe. It says, cooking is like love. It should be entered into with abandon or not at all. Of course, I entered into cooking with abandon, because I can't say that I was the best cook. But I learned some things from my mother just by sitting in the kitchen watching her cook. And then I learned some things from my mother-in-law, because my husband had a few favorite dishes that his mother made. And I've shoved my pride under the bed, under the stove, or under the refrigerator. And I called my mother-in-law and I asked her about the favorite recipes that he loved. He loved cream of rice. He loved Johnny's Marzetti. And then there was another vegetable soup that he loved that she made. And I called her and I asked about those, and she shared those recipes with me. But this story says, becoming a cook. And so the question says, do you like Hamburger Helper, my soon-to-be husband's 12-year-old son? So this is a blended family that was getting ready to come together. And so her soon-to-be husband's 12-year-old son said, Austin, he asked her this the first time she met him. He said, I hope so, because it's the only thing my dad knows how to cook. So, and she says, it's okay, honey, I can cook. This is what she told the 12-year-old. I assured him without even thinking. He eyed me suspiciously. What do you know how to make? And she said, I shrugged and then plunged into the abyss of deception. I know how to cook lots of things. What do you like to eat? He shrugged back. I like pretty much everything. Well, except Hamburger Helper. He wrinkled his nose. I'm kind of tired of that. I laughed. She said, if you like pretty much everything, we should be just fine in the food department. He grinned and looked at his dad. Marry her tomorrow, Dad. Seriously. So Eric and I followed Austin's suggestion and got married just about 5 months after we met. I quit my job, moved the 200 miles from my apartment in the Chicago suburbs to Eric's farmhouse in southern Indiana. This is another reason this caught my eye, because I remember I didn't move from a farmhouse. I moved from my parents' house to Dr. Woodard's house after we were married. And then we moved from Ohio to Indiana. His kids and my kids got along, like blood siblings do, loving each other one minute and fighting the next. And Eric, well, he was practically perfect in the husband department. Things were going exactly according to plan. Eric was her husband. Except for one thing, that little white lie I told. I said I could cook. Talk about the mother of all exaggerations. Yeah, I can cook if calling the pizza delivery boy qualifies as cooking. Saying I could cook was saying I could fly. It hadn't happened yet, but who knew? But maybe I could figure it out, and then I'd never have to fess up to my little fabrication. The pressure was on. I could practically hear Rachel Ray's voice taunting me. Did you tell that poor kid you knew how to cook? How could you do such a thing? But Emerald, the angel on my other shoulder, responded, it's all right, she'll learn. And then he added, bam, just to encourage me. For the first few months, I faked it with easy stuff like spaghetti and tacos. We grilled hamburgers and brats on the grill at least once a week. It was summer, so nobody expected me to spend a lot of time in the kitchen. But I knew winter was coming, and that meant the grill, my new best friend, would soon be going into hibernation. I panicked, but not for long. I soon found a new favorite appliance, my crock pot. And when she said that in this little story, she talked about the crock pot. I remember when me and my husband first got married and how we celebrated our first anniversaries. He always would buy me something that I could use to fulfill the job as a mother or a wife. And so one year he got me a sewing machine, and another year he got me this crock pot that I really did not use right away. But later on, I did start using that crock pot. And so she said her favorite appliance was the crock pot. You can throw practically, and she's right, anything in that thing, and it turns out all right. At first, I made sure I had a recipe, and I followed it exactly. But after a while, I got creative and started throwing in whatever I had on hand. One day, I tossed in some boneless, skinless chicken breast, a packet of onion soup mix, and a can of cream of whatever soup. When Eric, her husband, got home from work, he took a bite of my creation, which I mixed with egg noodles. His eyebrows went up and he nodded. "This is pretty good. What's it called?" Let me check, I said. I reached for a cookbook, flipped through the section of chicken recipes, and read the first one I saw. "Perfect breast," I said. Eric grinned. "Excellent. Be sure to make this one again. Maybe just for me next time." He wiggled his eyebrows suggestively. Chalk one up for me and my cooking skills. After I mastered my crock pot, I discovered some really great cooking websites. One site's specialty was recipes that required just 5 ingredients. Even I couldn't mess that up. I printed some of the more appealing ones and tried them out. They were really good. Even my so picky daughters asked for seconds. I was getting pretty good at faking the cooking thing. And then the real test came, my husband's birthday. Oh my goodness. In this family, birthdays are a huge deal. The whole family comes over to celebrate, but no one serves just cake and ice cream. Nope. These people come hungry and ready for a good home-cooked meal. And did I mention my husband is one of 8 children? Whoa. Yeah, so about 40 people, including my new mother-in-law, came over to our house expecting food that was not only edible, but actually tasty. I was beyond overwhelmed by it all. I filled 2 crock pots. You know what she fixed. She fixed that meal that her husband loved. So she said she filled 2 crock pots with chicken, boiled some egg noodles, fixed some bread, then the kind that comes in the tubes, heated about a dozen cans of green beans, and hoped for the best. If the food were terrible, there would always be cake. It was store-bought, so I couldn't mess it up. I watched closely as my mother-in-law took her first bite of the chicken I made. Her eyes lit up and she quickly took another bite. Holy cow, she liked it. I had pulled it off after all. When my husband's sister asked me for the recipe, I picked up my jar from the floor and stammered, "Oh, you won't want this recipe." "It's so easy, it's embarrassing." She smiled, "But those are the best kinds of recipes." I rattled off 5-ingredient recipe, ashamed that now everyone would peg me for the fake I was. "Diane, that chicken was delicious," another sister-in-law said. "The fact that it was easy to cook only makes me like it more." "But I'm really not a very good cook," I insisted. "Did you make the meal today?" my mother-in-law asked. "Well, yeah," I said. "Then you're a good cook." I looked into the smiling faces of the women in my new family, and I realized that becoming a cook was a lot like becoming a member of their family. It didn't matter how I'd gotten there, but I was sure glad I finally had. What a wonderful story. And I say that to say this, that, all of us start out somewhere. And I started out just sitting at my mother's countertop watching her cook. Then I cooked a few things, when I was away at college, when I didn't want to go to the cafeteria. I had a microwave. I had one of those electric fryers, and, I would fry something in there from time to time. But when I got married, when I left my mother's house, where she did all the cooking, really, and got married and moved into my husband's house, then I had to really take it up a notch. I cooked a few meals for him at his place before we were married, and he enjoyed them. So I think that convinced him that, hey, this girl knows how to cook. But I didn't really know much, except for what I had watched my mother do and the few recipes that I had gotten from my mother-in-law. So I think many of you probably are wondering, so all this cooking that you do now, Sister, it came with time. It came with trial and error. I bombed some meals, and then some meals I shocked myself. And it pleased my children when they were younger, and as they got older and my cooking skills got better, it pleased them even more. And even now, my daughter would tell you today, She said, there are a lot of people out there who think they can cook, Mama, but you can cook. And I think to myself, man, it wasn't always that way. And I told her that now that she has a family. And I have to chide myself because I really didn't, my daughter didn't sit in the kitchen with me like I sat in the kitchen with my mother. My daughter loved to work. She loved having jobs and going to school. So Jasmine went to school and went to work most of the time during her high school years. So she never really saw me cook in the kitchen. But we did get her a crock pot when she was in college, and she learned how to use a crock pot. And when she wants to cook something, she'll put it in that crock pot and it turns out wonderful. But I like the last line in the story. It didn't matter how I had gotten there, but thank God by his grace and his mercy, I have arrived to where I am now with Bev's Midday Cafe and a business where I prepare meals for people and they devour them, they love them, and they buy them. And not only that, that I'm able to even turn a corner in my lifestyle of how I eat and begin cooking vegan with the skills that I have, and have created some delicious meals for people that I love, and I'm concerned about their health as well as my husband's health. So who knows, this whole lifestyle change just may very well bless somebody and cause somebody to be healthier and live just a little bit longer. So thought I would share that with you. I don't think I've ever shared something like this on my YouTube channel. But I thought about it, and because I love this little book, it has a lot of great stories in it. And the next story I'm going to probably want to share with you it's called The Inside Story. And it starts off with this statement: I was 32 when I started cooking. Until then, I just ate. And guess who said this? Julia Child. Now, for you younger viewers, you may not know who Julia Child is, but for some of us older ones, we know who Julia Child is. A cooking prodigy and sensation on television, which, by the way, is where I learned a lot of stuff too. When I had my little ones, I would watch HGTV and I would watch all these cooking shows. I would always watch B. Smith. I don't know if you all remember B. Smith, but she was my, if you will, mentor, B. Smith, African-American prodigy on HGTV, who recently just passed from Alzheimer's. But I learned how to do a lot of cooking from her. And I would just sit there and watch her, but I never would try anything. But I did remember a lot of the things she did on television. And then my dear friend who lived right around the corner knew I loved and adored B. Smith. And she had a cookbook by B. Smith that she gifted to me. Diane Ross was her name. A very dear friend of mine back there in Ohio. Yeah, she gifted me that book, and I still have that cookbook even now today. So I share that story with you, and I say once again to you, wherever you are in this life, it doesn't matter how you got to where you are. What really matters is that you have finally made it to this point. And of course, it's only by God's grace and his mercy. Amen. Amen. So thank you for sharing these moments of encouragement and food and love. A taste of chicken soup for the soul. Bye-bye.